Welcome. My name is Jessie Heckenmueller, and I'll be your tour guide as we take this journey. We invite you to hop into the passenger seat for a road trip with South Carolina's Child Welfare Division. Today, you'll hear how their workforce left a culture and climate driven by compliance and fear in the rearview mirror and made their way to a destination point of a flourishing culture grounded in safety, trust, and alignment among professionals across the Child Welfare Division. We'll be joined by leaders at all levels on this road trip. First, you'll hear from Mike Leach, South Carolina Director of Social Services, highlighting adaptive leadership approaches on their journey to successful transformation. Emily Madeir, Deputy State Director of Child Welfare Services, will share the technical leadership strategies that complemented the adaptive changes, as well as some of the exciting outcomes that they've seen as a result. Then we will engage leaders who have been along for the ride, including Josie Jones, Director of Child Welfare Services, Safety Division, Nikita Harrison, Director of Child Welfare Services, Operations Division, Tamika Watson, Chesterfield County Director, and Siobhan Banks, Team Leader, Family Preservation. They will share their experiences and contributions to the transformation. Finally, we'll bring everyone together to discuss challenges, takeaways, and what they're most proud of. We expect that you'll leave this session inspired to chart your course to a culture in which the child welfare workforce is equipped for success. Speaking of that, let's turn to Emily for some reflection questions that will help you think about the landscape for your own leadership journey.
So as we begin to think about building a child welfare workforce that's equipped for success, I'd like to invite each of you to reflect on your own experiences, your past or your present teams, or other teams that you've been a part of. First, think about the best teams that you've ever been on. What made them so great? What words or images come to mind when you think about the best team that you've ever experienced? Now think about the current team, the workforce or the organization that you're a part of today. Write down 1 to 3 words that describes your workforce culture as it stands right now. Now I'd like you to write down 1 to 3 words that you'd like to use to describe it in the future. And now I'll turn it over to State Director Mike Leach.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Jessie. Imagine embarking on a road trip towards a destination where safety, trust, and alignment are cultivated in a child welfare workforce culture. In our pursuit of ensuring the well-being of our children and families, we have to recognize that our workforce is powering this journey. It's not just like any road trip. It requires constant communication, meticulous planning, collaboration, and a shared vision. In 2019, when I arrived here in South Carolina, I said, how do we start? Well, we must engage. Then we team, assess, plan, implement, and adapt. But we have to focus on listening first. And then we build capacity, continue to enhance our processes, we can improve quality, and we will see better outcomes. We need to use where we are as an opportunity to improve the whole overall system. There's always work to be done to enhance how we serve our citizens. We will work at innovative approaches with urgency and energy in this work. I knew that South Carolina could become a standard of excellence in child welfare and to make the children and families of South Carolina one of the state's highest priorities. This was our collective destination point, but to get there, we had to transform a fear and compliance-based workforce culture to one of safety, trust, and alignment, and it was going to take some adaptive leadership to get there. In a moment, I plan to share some of the checkpoints on our road trip to this destination point. But I want to start by sharing, just like any road trip, you may not know every turn-by-turn direction from the get-go, and there will be some challenges along the way. We've encountered roadblocks, detours, unexpected hurdles. However, it's how we've navigated these obstacles together that has defined our success. So let's look at the context of where we started on this trip. So here's a few highlights. When staff saw the state director in the county, they were worried they were going to get fired based on history. They needed to know if they didn't hit a target or goal, they would be publicly shamed. That's how, when I arrived, that's how we were. When we first arrived, the state had newly implemented GPS practice model, and strong change makers invested in improving DSS and supporting positive outcomes for children, youth, and families. We couldn't get to a full strategic plan without understanding what staff needed and felt was most important. So we had to start there. How do we get to a workplace culture of psychological safety? One, we listen to staff. We express care and compassion, getting to know staff and their needs, being there in support of decisions and caring about their work, and aligning on the vision. We also used large leadership meetings and worked to communicate regularly, sending regular communications, updates, birthday emails, anniversary emails. We are invested in this, and that's what we wanted to make sure that was sent through at the beginning. Our first checkpoint was safety. How do we get to a workplace culture of trust? Trust is inclusive of trust between colleagues, trust between leadership and frontline staff, and most importantly, trust from the community we serve. So we needed to do a few things. We needed to take action to reduce barriers staff bring up. Building a culture where speaking up is encouraged. Valuing diverse perspectives and honoring the voices of those on the front line, our professionals. Getting input on policies and practice from those most impacted, and making changes based on what is most important to them. Not just a memo, but a policy. And then we needed to equip staff with our needed resources. Make sure we have enough positions, increase salaries, created a salary plan, a salary ascension plan, and provided other concrete supports like Katana, EAP, newer and more vehicles, and better technology. And communicating with transparency and fostering open communication channels was important. Our second checkpoint was around trust. How does the workforce move forward in alignment, where every member of our team is moving in sync toward a common goal? We have to align on purpose, values, roles, and goals, and we have to continually do that. We then work to develop a strategic plan, make everyone's role in it and contributing to it clear. And again, communicate with consistency. The third checkpoint, alignment. How do we make sure our workforce is aligned and seamless and there's collaboration? So we implemented the strategic plan. We worked with a team approach, improving team dynamics. We offered leadership coaching through Coach Approach. And we improved all our training, updated training and brought it in-house, paid peer support team members, mentoring programs, and again, communicate with transparency and consistency, emphasizing accountability. Do you know your role? Do you know what's expected of you? And do you know that we're here to support you? And our fourth checkpoint is sustainability, our destination point. Becoming a standard of excellence in child welfare and to make the children and families of South Carolina one of the state's highest priorities. Pursuing a workforce culture focused on safety, trust, alignment, and sustainability has made it possible for us to transform our approach to child welfare and achieve positive outcomes for children, youth, and families. And this has included having a strong workforce and reducing our turnover rate through supporting training and best equipping our staff to carry out their roles serving children and families. Ensuring that whenever possible, children and families are able to be strengthened and thrive in their homes and in their communities. And strengthening partnerships with community agencies and increasing our local service array throughout South Carolina. Now that you've heard a bit about the adaptive leadership strategies that have helped us get to this destination point, you'll hear from Emily on some of the technical strategies that were implemented in more depth. Emily?
Thank you, Director Leach. So when we began thinking about building a workforce and a work culture that felt valued and that could be successful in this so difficult work that we are asking them to do, we started with a philosophy that was based in research around what helps create a successful and sustainable child welfare workforce. The 3 tenets of this approach included hiring the right candidate, making sure they are well trained, and third, making sure that they're supported in their role. In terms of recruitment strategies and hiring the right candidate, we implemented new recruitment strategies that included social media platforms, streaming, TV, and radio ads. We also implemented both a BSW and an MSW Title IV stipend program for both prospective and existing employees so that we could pay for our staff's education or pay for prospective staff's education in exchange for them working for the department for 2 years after graduation. We also implemented a new competency-based interviewing process across the state that allowed us to make the hiring process for all new candidates consistent in every office that we have across the state of South Carolina. This new process focused on making sure that we're hiring candidates that we know have competencies that make them good candidates and successful child welfare case managers and supervisors. Our competency-based interviewing process also has a pre-interview video where staff can watch a video about what it means to be a child welfare case manager, both the good and the not so good parts of the job. And what we found is that video helps to sift out folks who may not be a good fit for the role before they ever get to the interview, which often saves us weeks of investing in them as an employee and a trainee to only have them drop out in the training process. And instead, we're able to give them that preview on the front end so that they know whether or not this role is a good fit for them. We also incorporate a case scenario where we ask applicants to document their responses to a hypothetical case scenario. And that helps us to both exhibit the candidate's critical thinking skills and helps us gauge what their documentation abilities look like. We also implemented a salary plan that increased our starting salaries of frontline case managers and team leaders by 20 to 30%. And we added in step increases so that frontline case carrying positions and supervisors receive an increase for each additional year that they remain with the department in child welfare in that role to promote the sustainability and the retention of those candidates. The second component of that was making sure that our staff are well trained. And in our training, we revamped our Child Welfare Academy, which is our new worker training, and we brought it completely inside the department. We changed up the training from being all classroom to now including a combination of in-classroom and on-the-job training, which we found really helps to reinforce the knowledge and the skills and helps our staff apply the skills that they're learning in the classroom in real time in the field. We also have continually adapted this training since we implemented it based on feedback that we're hearing from staff and leaders in the field about what's working well and what's hindering learning through the training process. And this continual adaptation of that Child Welfare Academy has really helped it be its best and making sure we're meeting what learners need as they're coming into the department. We also implemented peer support through our initial training and peer mentors following the training up to 6 months post-certification. So while they're in the training process, staff are assigned with a peer mentor, another case manager, who can help them through that entire training process and get them acclimated to their job. And then for up to 6 months following graduation from Child Welfare Academy, they're assigned to a performance coach who can continually help to hone their skills and make sure they have the knowledge base that they need as they're taking on their first cases. We also developed a curriculum to provide ongoing case manager training based on levels and their experience in the field. And then also as a part of the salary plan that I mentioned earlier, staff can seek additional training beyond the initial requirements and meet specific performance metrics, and they can receive corresponding salary increases based on their training and their performance. And we call those level up increases. So that's another great retention strategy where we're promoting staff continually learning and then incentivizing them based on that. And then the final component of our approach was around making sure that staff feel supported in their role. We know that the leading cause of turnover, especially in child welfare, is lack of support and especially lack of supervisor support. So this was a major focus of our approach. We implemented a coach approach model for adaptive leadership where we trained all of our frontline supervisors all the way up to state level leadership on this new approach to support our frontline staff and to support the people that we manage across the state. So it focuses on moving away from the traditional mindset of management and it being fully focused on data and metrics to focusing more on the adaptive challenges and coaching staff through the issues that they might have. There's a second level that we also implemented called adaptive leadership, which teaches leaders how to focus on addressing adaptive challenges instead of the technical challenges that we so often fall into. And then finally, we implemented the third level of the leadership coaching support, which is change management training. This training is for our top leaders across the state, and it teaches them how to effectively implement child welfare change throughout large systems like ours. We all know that child welfare is constantly changing, and so teaching our staff how to effectively implement and sustain change in large systems like child welfare was extremely important, and we've found it to be very successful. So while these interventions started at different points over the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen them culminate into some very tangible and positive results across our workforce and our state that we're really proud of. We believe that each of these 3 approaches that we've taken has combined to contribute to the results that we're seeing, and that any singular tactic or approach on its own wouldn't help us see the improved and sustained results that we're seeing today. So some of the key outcomes that I'd like to share with you that we've seen as a result of the strategy that we put in place is we now have a 7% vacancy rate across all of our child welfare case manager positions, meaning we're 93% staffed in all of our case manager positions statewide. We're 98% staffed across all of our direct case manager supervisors, and we only have a 13.1% vacancy rate across all of our child welfare staff, which is over 2,600 positions across the state. We've also seen our annual turnover decrease by 5%, and we've seen a decrease in rates of turnover within employees within the first year of the agency. We've also seen our average caseloads decrease, which allows a more focused and intentional work with families. And we've seen, among other intentional efforts, this to lead to a decrease in overall cases with the department that the department is involved in. So we've seen a decrease of over 850 investigations compared to 2022, a decrease of over 1,500 family preservation non-custodial cases compared to 2022, and a decrease of over 1,000 children and youth in foster care as of April 2024 compared to May 2019. So we're really proud of the results that we've seen and the efforts that we've put in place. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Jessie for interviews of some of our leaders at all levels of the system.
Thank you so much, Emily. What an excellent overview of technical and adaptive leadership strategies that have made such a difference for South Carolina's Division of Child Welfare Services. I'm so excited now to interview a few of the key leaders that made some of this possible. Josie, could you join me on screen? So Josie, you've been with South Carolina Department of Social Services for 18 years, and around 2016 is when they first started the development phase for the practice model. You've been there since the beginning. I wanted to ask you if you could tell us about your experience of leading strategies very early on in this process, including kind of that transition from the initial rollout of the practice model to really needing to take that time to listen and learn and communicate and align on that vision before taking action.
Well, thank you, Jessie. Yes, the experience was very rewarding as South Carolina did not have a practice model and had inconsistent practices across our state. But we knew we wanted and needed a better system for our children and families that we serve as well as each other. We knew in order to see the change, we needed to be the change. So throughout our journey to develop and implement our model, we made a dual commitment. We wanted to enhance frontline case managers and team leaders' skills and behaviors. And we were also dedicated to driving organizational change, both internally and externally, with how we engaged each other. So through the listening sessions and feedback, we were set to the expectation that all agency leaders, managers, and team leaders were to treat staff, stakeholders, and community partners with the same strength-based approach and collaborative teamwork that we expect from our frontline case managers when they are engaging families. Also, to assist with building a better infrastructure and organizational culture, we strategically embedded division within our HR recruitment efforts, our training deliverables, our policies, and we also hired a dedicated employee to assist with ongoing implementation and sustainability of our guiding principles and standards practice model. Lastly, during this transition, we also prioritized ongoing engagement with staff and stakeholders. Our focus was on discussing the model's purpose, values, guiding principles, and core practice skills. We conducted presentations during regional and county director state meetings. We also developed an overview, safe, self-paced training module for staff to view. And we also implemented our GPS training and content in our Child Welfare Academy for new hires. So yes, this has been a very, very rewarding process and experience for me in South Carolina.
Josie, thank you so much. What's so clear to me as you were talking is the intentionality that you took and that your whole team was taking to really align that vision and to work with and alongside staff, not kind of top down and just tell them what it was. So thank you so much, Josie. Now I want to invite Nikita to join me on screen. Nikita's been in leadership positions for 25 years of her 29-year career. She has so much wisdom to share. So Nikita, tell me a little bit about your leadership experience and what had to change for your leadership approach specifically over the last few years.
Thank you, Jessie. Yes, 29 years and 25 years of that in leadership. Seems like a long time. But as I think about how my leadership has changed, I have to go back to where I started as a case manager. It was always important to me in that role to make sure all the boxes were checked. So like face-to-face visits, contacts with the parents, with the providers, and transporting kids to make sure, I had everything checked, to make sure the child had to make sure the children had what they needed, like to be successful. So along that journey, I realize now, that the parent piece of it, I didn't do as good of a job as I should have. So as I transitioned into leadership, I kind of led in the same manner by ensuring my staff checked those same boxes. But as I grew in my leadership role, I realized that checking the boxes didn't work for all circumstances. It was easier when I was managing one office, but my role had expanded for covering a region, then to covering all child welfare, county offices and regional adoptions offices. And they needed more to my leadership approach than what I was, currently given. As my leadership role evolved more into the development of policies and practices, I realized that my leadership style needed to change along with it. I needed to tap more into my why of this work. So I shifted my approach from going straight to results to building trust, because I'm one of those people that like to get 100%. But I realize, while that's a good goal, it's not realistic, in every situation. So it really helped me to kind of slow down so that my team could develop trust in me and I could develop that same trust in them. The book, The Advantage, really helped guide me in doing the work and understanding the impact that trust could have on the workforce, when they trust you to lead. And so, we kind of slowed down and help develop that trust first, and then you can get to the results eventually. But you have to have that core trust in your staff, and they have to have that trust in you. So on this journey, I realized that leaders needed also to be trained at the same pace as frontline staff, because our system was changing, evolving. The practices that we had that didn't result in good outcomes, we were changing those things, but our leaders weren't necessarily coming along because we weren't training them. So we now make sure that our team leaders, our county directors are trained at the same pace as our frontline staff. And so 5 years later, I can feel the energy shift in our leaders. They're more engaged and responsive to the work and are more invested in the change that needs to happen in our work here in South Carolina.
Those are incredible learnings. And I can imagine were difficult and challenging along the way, Nikita.
Yeah.
And I'm sure not just difficult and challenging for you, but also for the teams that you were leading and that you were working alongside. And so I'm curious, how did you know, or what did you notice was shifting in the workforce culture as you were making these changes?
So I noticed that staff felt comfortable reaching out now to help from the top level on down. When I was a leader in the on the county level, I would have never called anyone in the state office for help and support. It's just something that you didn't do. But I'm now, we've created that environment where staff feel comfortable calling me, Emily, Director Leach, from frontline staff all the way up to our team leaders. They're not afraid to, if they need support or they have questions, they reach out, so that they can get those questions answered. So, as a leader, that feels really good that people aren't just sitting and, letting that hinder them, but they are reaching out, for that support with us. Can we pay for this? Or, we're trying to do this practice, it's not working. Or if they find things in the practice that, is not working, they reach out, they inform us of those things so that we can work on them, so that they can have what they need to do the hard work, because they're the ones, the frontline staff, that are doing the hard work. So I'm glad we've created that environment to where, our staff are not afraid to reach out for the support that they need. And that, so, we've engaged our staff in the building of our new practices. They provide, great feedback, and we've utilized that to improve our practice in the work that we're doing here in South Carolina.
That's so helpful to hear, Nikita. So the importance of trust, and then also that leaders are no longer untouchable. They're not siloed anymore. They're there, they're accessible, and that staff are reaching out, and that was a huge sign that the workforce culture has shifted. Thank you for highlighting that. So now I want to invite Tamika to join me on screen. Tamika stepped into her leadership role with Chesterfield County in 2020, a very uncertain time for all of us, and particularly in child welfare agencies across the country in light of the COVID pandemic. So I'm really curious to hear from you, Tamika. What was happening with staff culture and climate at this time for you, including the safety and the trust piece that we were hearing from Josie and Nikita, particularly at this county level that you were working at?
Okay, thank you, Jessie. I do appreciate it. Although I've been with the agency for 23 years, before becoming county director, I spent 7 years in economic services. So not only were things unknown for my workers, it was just completely new because they had to learn not only the new practice that was going on, but I was learning right alongside them. And they also had to learn my leadership style as we went along. So we had a lot going on here in Chesterfield. And as was mentioned before, one thing that I had to do was get rid of that fear culture that was so prominent in our office. I had to keep reiterating to our workers that we are here to learn and to implement the changes that are going to affect, while also acknowledging that I knew we weren't going to get it right every time, but we were going to try our best and we were going to learn and do better the next time. Another thing, as you've heard before, was I needed to build trust. There was not a lot of trust, not a lot of confidence in leadership. And there was also this territorial thing that we had going on in Chesterfield where no one wanted to step outside of their units to help each other. So we had to tear all of that down and pretty much just build a new foundation and just start over. So we had a lot going on, and they had to learn that I was in the trenches with them. If it was something going on, I was right there by their side to make sure that we all succeeded in doing what we needed to do. Another thing that really helped here in Chesterfield is that I implemented one-on-ones with each of the child welfare staff, not only team leads, but the frontline staff as well, because I wanted to hear their concerns and their ideas, and based off of what they're saying, being able to implement solutions based off of those one-on-ones. Now, those one-on-ones were hard, but they were needed. I needed to hear their questions, their comments, their concerns. And not only did I benefit from that, but I know the staff and our team benefited from it as well. And we had an open door policy. Not only me, but all of my team leads have open door policies. So if any staff need to come to us, they are more than welcome to come to us. But when they come, they had to come with some level of accountability because some things were non-negotiable. One of the things that we strive on is seeing our children every month. That is very important for me and for everyone else. So we just had to make sure that we did everything that we needed to do to make sure that our families and our children were safe and served appropriately.
Wow, I love that you've highlighted so much how you had to really start from a new foundation build that trust and get to know each other at a one-to-one level, but that you paired that with accountability. And you talked a little bit about how you wanted staff to know that you were in the trenches with them. And so I wanted to pull on that thread a little bit. And how did you know that the staff knew that they were invested in this just as much as you were, and that they were also leading from all of their particular roles or levels?
Okay, good question. When it got to the point where they didn't mind coming to me and said, Miss Tamika, can you explain this? Miss Tamika, I need help. I knew then that they had bought in to what it was that we were trying to do here in South Carolina. And my motto here is to work with a spirit of excellence. We're like Miss Nikita said, we're always striving for that 100%. We know that we weren't going to get there every time, but we had a goal that we were trying to reach. So 100% spirit of excellence, that's what we did. And in doing that, I was able to notice that our retention rate had boosted to the point where in 2023, we had no resignations in Chesterfield County at all. So that was a huge milestone for us, and I'm just so proud of our team. And another thing that helped us here was coach approach. Instead of giving the answers to everyone, just asking them, how can I support you? If there was a perfect ending, how would we get there? So letting them expand their critical thinking and for them to take ownership of their cases. Once we got to that point and it flowed easily, I was like, yeah, we're on that road. We're good now.
Wow, those are like so many good key moments that helped you see like, oh, we're in the trenches together. We're doing this together. I really appreciate you highlighting that. And you started talking about coach approach. And so now I'm so excited to invite Siobhan to join me on screen. Siobhan stepped into her position as supervisor in 2018. And at that time, there wasn't training for that particular role. She was still carrying a caseload due to a shortage in frontline workers at that time, which sounds incredibly challenging and also probably very familiar for many of the people who are listening to us today. And so, Siobhan, I am so excited to hear from you specifically about what your leadership experience was during South Carolina's child welfare system transformation that we've been talking about today.
Good afternoon. Starting off was a challenge, like you said. I was carrying a caseload and still trying to manage 6 workers. It was really hard at that time. Felt like I wasn't giving them what they need or the client. It's like I'm trying to work a caseload, trying to teach them to guide them through, trying to help them with their case. It was really difficult, but through that time, it did get better. Through hiring more people, I was able to give them that one-on-one to actually, like Ms. Tamika said, give them that coach approach. I was able to you tell me what we need to do and tell them instead of me saying you have to do. And not only through this transformation, it also helped me as a supervisor and our families. We was able to give the families a one-on-one what they needed. Before this whole transformation, we weren't able to help pay for clients. Now we able to pay for services. That was a barrier before. People weren't able to complete or get their children back because there's limited sources that they had. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the transportation. During this whole transformation, we have providers that come in the home. So our transportation is not a barrier anymore. Because we have them coming to the home, working with the families.
Siobhan, that is so wonderful to hear. And I particularly love that you took this to a whole nother level, right? I'm asking about workforce culture and what shifted in leadership approaches. And you've brought this back to the heart of why we really do what we do, which is children, youth, and families. And so thank you for highlighting that and talking about what your particular experience was and how that impacted the ability for not just you, but your whole team to be able to support children, youth, and families. So now I'm so excited to invite everyone who you've heard from today to invite me on screen for a quick roundtable discussion on this whole road trip from the starting point to our destination point. Folks in the passenger seat, I can't wait for you to see this team interact with each other. We've talked about so many different adaptive and technical strategies that led to the shift in workforce culture. And really, I want you to keep hearing from the team. So South Carolina Division of Social Services team, tell me a little bit about 1 or 2 pivotal moments or memories along the way that helped you really see this transformation.
Jesse, I think I could start with that. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is being able to remove the fear-based mindset and creating a safety culture, psychological safety culture within our agency. And that started with our top leadership team. So Director Leach, Director Emily McDear, and Nikita started conducting county visits. So they were going across our state. We have 46 counties and 4 regional adoption offices where they were going to every office, meeting with case managers, team leaders, where you probably know them as supervisors, team coordinators, deputy county directors, everyone, and just getting to know who they are, trying to find out, what's working well in their counties, what needs to happen, what needs to change. So they started the culture of listening to our staff. Whereas many years ago, being a part of a system where you may not even seen your state director, which again, that created that fear-based culture then, but now you have the top of the top coming into your county office to talk with you. And I'm not talking about 15 minutes, 20-minute conversation. I'm talking about an hour conversation, sometimes all day in a county office, hearing from everyone. And that meant a lot. So I believe that started some of that pivotal shift in our agency, which is extremely huge, getting the leadership to buy into what's happening on the grounds.
I agree, Josie. Like when me and Emily first started out, I think Director Leach started his visits initially. But last year, me and Emily decided like we were going to do it too, but have kind of like intentional conversations, kind of like a mapping, what's working well, what are you concerned about, or the struggles, and like, what do you need? And we did all 50, like we have 46 counties and 4 regional adoptions offices. So we did all 50 of them. They were hard conversations, but they were needed conversations with our frontline staff. So if we were going to continue to build that trust, not just with our leadership, but also with our frontline staff, I think that has really been a game changer for South Carolina. And those conversations were hard. I remember thinking when we got finished, I was like, oh my gosh, how do we do that? But the things that we changed in our system, have been as a result of those conversations. But they were very hard conversations to hear, because some of them were about us as leaders. But we were able to take those conversations to see what did we need to change about, how we approach the work, because we want to make sure our frontline staff have what they need to be able to do the work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both of you, Josie and Nikita. Nikita and I have often said that those are some of the most time consuming, but best time spent is our time with staff in the offices. Because as people, and I'm sure there are many people listening who are state level leaders, it's easy to stay in your office, right? And you can stay busy staying in your office on back-to-back meetings. But this experience has been so valuable for me because it's allowed us to hear what our staff need. And if I don't know and am not responding to what my staff need, then I'm not being a good leader, no matter how productive I'm being. So although they were difficult conversations, I believe that a lot of the progress that we've made, a lot of the trust that we've been able to build, a lot of the forward momentum that we've been able to have been as a result of hearing staff and hearing what they're concerned with and hearing what they need, and then being responsive to those things.
I learned throughout COVID that more regular communication was absolutely needed. And compassion during that time. Not that we weren't being compassionate before, but I think it accelerated it and it really got us thinking about, we care about our folks. We care about our professionals, our leadership, our team. And it was really, those were some scary times for everybody, right? Personally, professionally, how do you do your job? How do you care for your children? And, I think it went back to like if we're going to be successful, like we have to really care about each other. And hopefully that translated into caring about our families, right? Like families can tell when you care or you don't care. And they're going to make progress or not make progress based on that. And so that has to be part of this. And I think as the couple things that came to mind is, I'd send regular questions out, cultural questions, just culture questions, just to get folks' thoughts on different general things. And as time went on, the responses were really deep and thoughtful, and you could tell they were really working that. And when I'd ask about particular cases, as I do once in a while, I say, hey, tell me more about this case. You can feel it. You can see it when they write back or tell you what's going on. And you could start seeing those shifts that Siobhan mentioned and Tamika mentioned. So that was exciting when that started happening.
Also through this transformation, not only for the staff, it was also for our families. They felt important because with this transformation, we included our family. We included them before, but it's more like it's better now. Like our saying, we're better together. Can we all working together on making sure the family needs are being met? You have more parents are willing to do because you're not telling, you're asking and they're giving their input. So I think this whole transformation not only worked for the staff, but the families that we serve.
Wow, what awesome key pivotal moments along the way. And Siobhan, again, bringing it back to the heart here. And that involvement looked like not just involving staff at all levels, but involving families. That's huge. So, Mike, earlier you were talking a little bit about how there's some detours, there were some roadblocks, some unexpected maybe turns in our turn-by-turn directions across these checkpoints of safety, trust, and alignment. And so I wanted to open it up for a quick discussion around some of the challenges throughout this transformation. We spent a long time talking about successes, and there are so many for this team to celebrate. Like, I wish that we could just highlight all of them again. But tell us some about what was hard and the lessons that you all have learned along the way. Maybe something that you would do differently next time.
Let me start this one off and talk about the amount of training that we had. There was so much training to try to get everyone prepared to go in the new direction that we were going in. There were a lot of trainings that require prerequisite training. So making sure that myself, team leads, as well as frontline, were taking the trainings that they needed to take in the order that they need to take them in so that they can be certified and ready to go when it was time to go live with whatever the new thing was that we was doing at that time. So there was a lot of training and a lot of deadlines that we had to meet. So that was kind of difficult for us.
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
piggyback off of Tamika and just say that is one thing that I think that I would do differently if I had to go back again, because we rolled so much out at one time that we've had to spend a lot of time since then going back and retraining folks on things because we had so much new information coming out. Also, we were in the middle of a global pandemic, so people's learning capacities were already limited because of the stress that they were under. And so there was so much going on at one time that we could have sequenced it better and made the alignment better between the different rollouts that we were doing to just help people understand how it all fit together instead of, like Tamika said, feeling one thing after another after another.
And that was one thing that I think I noticed too. So my peers, which is my team one, so like Josie, and then we had 3 other peers that are with us, not today, that we realized, we were kind of operating in silos, and we were creating something over here in operations, safety was creating something, our permanency team was creating something, but we didn't align the work. So now, that we embarked on the team one concept, there's a lot more communication, a lot more cross collaboration with, projects that we're doing so that we don't overtask staff with all those trainings, because we were overwhelmed too up here saying, well, why aren't people doing it? Like, why are they scheduling that training on this day? We got our training. And so it really did, like, I think, in South Carolina, we all had to take a step back and look at how we could do things differently and better. And so that cross collaboration, like, really helped us get aligned, in our different division areas as well.
There's an urgency in this work, right? And our families deserve that because they need the best of us, right? The problem is with that, though, sometimes you could skip steps, or there's things layered on top of things that you just heard, or you have competing priorities, whether that's federal, state, settlement agreements, things like that, that can cause you to have to, not follow the proper sort of implementation science on it all. It's overwhelming. This work is already hard. We already have, a tremendous amount of things that we have to do to make sure that our families are strengthened. There are a lot of things that have competing priorities, and it's balancing those things, right? And balancing the speed, balancing the priorities. And the team has to communicate with each other, just as you heard Nikita say. If you don't do that, you're just going to be all over each other. And so it's taken some time to figure that out and get that going. But I think we're headed the right direction.
Excellent insights from everyone. The saying, I think, is go slow to go far, right? And I think you all are demonstrating that and also sharing where there's some things that other folks could maybe take into their work to help them implement that. It also makes me think of the tortoise and the hare, right? And what really helps us get to success in the way that you all are talking, especially that cross system or cross team collaboration piece. That is so huge. So I want to take it back to something that Siobhan just keeps pulling for us, which is that the agency's work and this workforce shift in culture was not just about the workforce. The workforce is the heart, it's needed. But during this transformation and journey, you all have seen things change with children and families. And I want to see what that shift has looked like. So tell us a little bit about it. Maybe Mike, you could kick us off.
I want from the beginning, I wanted to make sure that we had a belief in family, right? That we believed in families, that we listened and understood their values, and we supported families through their journey, and to hopefully build hope and brighter futures, right? They have to believe that, right? Our young people, we talk about, indicators for success, right? It's a connected, caring adult for long-term success, right? And we have to make sure that our staff know that, one, they're cared about, we're connected, but our families also need that, right? They need to be believed in. So I think that's where, we have to try. We have to give an effort to make sure that we're doing, and then give them the support so hopefully they can be successful. But I think for me, that's where it started. I want us to believe that families can be what they want to be, strengthened and, doing their thing. And so, yeah.
And Jesse, I think listening, like we've created opportunities to hear our families' voices in working with our lived experience parents and also our youth, our young adult youth. Sometimes it's really hard to hear our young adults, how they experience our system. But those conversations are needed so that we can change, so that we can make sure they have the same experiences as our own personal kids have. And so that work is like very important. Like I remember when we were creating our visitation policy, and we let our lived experience parents like review that policy for us and provide us feedback. It was very eye-opening, but it also helped us create, something, that worked for our parents as well, and not just, for the system, but we included them in those conversations. And so we've had them on several of our developed work for, when we're developing practices. And so that's been like, I think, another game changer for South Carolina as well.
Siobhan, I think you talked a little bit about how that impacted the community and even how the community has seen the agency. Could you tell us a little bit about that specifically?
As everyone know, everyone think DSS are baby snatchers, but I think with this transformation, it has really brought the community to have a different aspect of DSS. They seem like now they have a voice. Their opinion matters. So this whole aspect of DSS is look like, oh, they're not here to just take my kids. They're here to help me, not only help me, but better my family.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Siobhan. I think a lot of what we've tried to do, right? Director Leach talked about this earlier about centering families. A lot of what we've tried to do as a leadership team is to allow people to do what they got in this work to do, which is to serve children and families. We don't get into this work because we want to comply with a specific data metric, right? Or reach 100% or pass a CFSR or comply with, a specific review or something like that. We get into this work, all of us do, no matter where you sit in the system, we get in this work because we want to help children and families. And so that's what we've tried to do as a leadership team, is to remove any barriers, remove any obstacles that get in the way of doing that, and give our staff whatever they need to be able to help children and families in the way that the family says that they need the help.
That's so beautiful. I love that you all talked about how the workforce culture and the things that were changing there had a direct connection in your ability to meet the safety, permanency, and well-being goals that you have for children, youth, and families in your county, or sorry, in your state, I should say. So to close out the roundtable, I wish we could keep talking all day long. This conversation is wonderful. But to close it out, I want to invite each of you as a South Carolina leader for the Child Welfare Services, to share something that you're most proud of during this transformation, or one takeaway that you hope child welfare staff who lead at all levels will walk away from hearing about your road trip. You may not have time to speak to both, but I want them to hear from each of you. Josie, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think if there was one thing that I could share that I'm most proud of, is being a part of the change. I spoke about it a little earlier, but just being able to see the change. Here in South Carolina, we've gone through a lot. This transformation has been a rewarding transformation, but years prior to, we started something, we stopped. We started, we stopped. Leadership at the highest level shifted. But being able to have consistency, having consistent leaders, having leaders that have bought into not only the workforce, but the community, our children and our families, it has brought a big sigh of relief. It makes you want to come to work, to do the work and be successful at it, but also be able to see the families thrive. So being a part of the changes is one of my best, proudest moments of being in this system and still being with South Carolina Child Welfare. I would also just share that if there was one thing I could tell any leader that is in the child welfare division, listening to our roundtable and our roadmap through our transformation process, is to listen. The listening is vital. And as you heard from my leaders today, all it took was listening to staff, employees, hearing what their concerns were, hearing what they felt like could make the system better, thinking outside the box, and then going back and figuring out how can we make that happen. And as of today, we have seen a better South Carolina system. And I do know things are going to come after that, but right now in this moment, I'm happy about that. And I would say to any leader out there, just listen to your staff.
Absolutely, Josie. And I will say, for one thing that I am just proud of on a local county level is just a shift in the atmosphere. You have workers who don't mind coming to work. Like Josie said, they don't mind getting in there and doing what needs to be done. So just a shift, where we've come so far under these 5 years that Director Leach has been here. And it's just amazing. I'm enjoying the ride. And if there was one thing that I could say, is that this work is hard, but it's absolutely doable. It can be done. Once you get that mindset shift, the work can be done, and the reward is worth all the sacrifices that we put into it. So it is a rewarding job.
This is the hardest work there is. And I'm most proud of just the dedicated, passionate professionals we have across this agency. You can tell with this group right here, we have lots of folks who have this mindset and are going above and beyond every day, right? We haven't fixed everything. We're constantly on this journey, right? And there's things that, we go back and forth on all the time. But listen, they are nonstop. They're dedicated. They want better. They want us to pursue, again, that excellence that we talked about earlier.
And I'll say, coming from an operations standpoint, what I'm most proud of and thankful for is the work that Director Leach has done with our legislators to get us funding. Because you can't fix child welfare if you don't have the structure you need to do the work. And so, he really did advocate for us, and I'm sure, went back and forth over to our state office, to the legislative office, just making sure they were aware of the work that we were doing. And we were able to get funded more positions so that we could structure our county offices and our regional offices the way they needed to be structured, so that, caseloads weren't so high. And so, with the work and the funding that we've been able to get to add more positions, it's really helped reduce workers' caseloads. And so with that reduction in caseload, they can do better in quality work, because when your caseloads are 20, 25, it's hard to meet the needs, of every family, when your caseload is that high. And so, so that's why we're trying to do a good job of making sure those positions stay filled, with all the work, practices that we've changed around, our destination retention and our hiring process, so that we can keep those workers, once they're trained and in the workforce. And so, but it takes a leader like Director Leach and Emily, with their boots on the ground too, making sure we have what we need to be able to operate within the system.
When I think about what I'm most proud of, the overwhelming feeling that comes to my mind is that I'm so incredibly proud of our child welfare staff across the state. I, day after day, seen them lean in new and innovative ways that really pour into families. Change is hard, and we've asked them to change a lot over the last 5 years. And even still, they have been open and adaptive and continually moving forward to serve families. And I'm just so incredibly proud of that, and so incredibly proud, right? We've talked a lot about what's going well, but it's not perfect. Our system is not perfect. We're dealing with a lot of the same challenges that every other state across the country is, with mental health challenges, with lack of services, with placement instability, with young people who desperately need help. We still have incredible challenges, but even so, staff come to work every single day pouring out more and more of themselves to love on families and to serve families and to serve children. And so I'm so proud of that. And my one takeaway would be, don't try to shortcut it. It's tempting to try and take a shortcut. It's tempting to try and do it faster, but you'll always have to go back and repeat yourself. So don't take the shortcut.
I also say, as a supervisor, the change was hard, getting the change in the workers' mindset, because they want you to actually helping the family. Is more like it was a number thing, just seeing them. So this change as caseworkers and supervisors is going to be challenging, because like they say, it's like one thing after another, new change, but at the end of the day, it's a rewarding change.
We're better together, right, Siobhan?
We are.
Yeah, and I saw the whole team just nod their head as you were talking, and as we said, we're better together. And I feel like you all got such a great demonstration of this team being better together by hearing them answer these questions and build off each other. So thank you so much, South Carolina team, for sharing your wisdom with us and all that went into getting it to this destination point. That's a continued journey of becoming a standard of excellence in child welfare and making children and families of South Carolina one of the state's highest priorities. You all have really poured your hearts, your minds, and your souls into this. I know these takeaways are resonating with folks in our audiences, that they're smiling as you're talking about what they're proud of and connecting with what they are also proud of. And I hope that each of you all in the audience will really feel inspired to take your own successful leadership road trip. Before we close out, though, I want to kick it over to Director Leach to share a little bit more.
Thank you, Jesse. I hope you enjoyed our trip. We are better together. And I want to thank you all for the work you do in your respective states. Again, this work is challenging. It's never ending, but it is rewarding and can make a huge difference in a child and family's life. Couple takeaways, right? We didn't use this word, but you have to persevere, right? It's the cornerstone of success in this work. It's about pushing forward, even when faced with obstacles or setbacks, and working together collaboratively, as you can see here. Each day, we encounter hurdles in this work, and it's our ability to persist and keep striving that ultimately leads us to our goals. And remember, every setback is an opportunity for growth. You heard Emily say, we just do it the right way, right? Don't skip steps. We also need to treat everyone equally and listening to folks. We heard a lot of that today. We need to treat our staff like we treat our families, with care and compassion and a belief that we can all be better. And I think equally as important as that perseverance is the support we provide one another. We're not alone in this journey, and we can't do it alone. We have partners, colleagues who stand beside us, offer assistance, guidance, trust. We heard a lot about that, and encouragement when needed. So whether it's lending a helping hand on a tough task, providing constructive feedback, or simply being a listening ear, our support for each other strengthens the fabric of our teams, and it enables us to achieve more together than we ever could alone. So let's continue to embody perseverance in everything we do, pushing through the obstacles and with determination and resolve. And let's never underestimate the power of support, encouraging that together, and then we can overcome any challenge that comes our way. So thank you all for what you guys do. And just remember, don't let the foot off the gas. You can slow down, but you got to continue moving. So thank you for your time, and thanks for listening to South Carolina.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed all of the sessions. I want to talk about leadership, what that looks like for me as far as just some qualities that I really value. Making sure that I'm weaving race equity into the work that I do, and the providers and child welfare that I collaborate with, making sure that we're always putting that first as far as with families and with practices and whatnot. And also just making sure that we have, lived experience leaders to be able to be encouraged, right? Give them inspiration, really kind of validate, their voice, and help them to understand that their voice is super impactful. And when you can gain that self-confidence, I know for myself, when people encourage me to step outside of my comfort zone and be in spaces where I was vulnerable, I felt like, wow, like I can really make a difference. And in the way that child welfare practices and policies are in place. And so I think that's really important. I'm really intentional about being trauma-informed, culturally sensitive, and just really empowering the team that I'm on. I always want to make sure that, everyone has a space in which they can really elevate their voice. And then that just gives lived experience leaders to see that we are more than just our case. I will now turn it back over to Miss Bianca.
Thanks, Belinda. And I think you wrapped that up so beautifully. We are more than just our case. So I really
Yes.
insights.
Yes.
But before I get into what my leadership looks like, I just want to send a friendly reminder that if you haven't, go into the resource gallery and review that leadership tool. I promise you won't forget it, and it will act as a great reflective practice during the rest of these sessions. Now let's get back into my leadership. So at the heart of my leadership is the belief that our work is more than just completing tasks, but it's about inspiring and empowering each other. It's all about a balance and making people feel valued and empowered. And in doing so, it motivates them to meet outcomes and goals of the organization. I also feel like my leadership looks like focusing on unique strengths and the needs of people, primarily focusing on the communities we serve, which are marginalized and vulnerable communities. It's all about understanding the elements and finding ways to build upon them through a collaborative effort. This approach doesn't really just solve problems, but it also provides the team with ways to understand the purpose in meeting these goals and outcomes. Why are we doing this? So it's always important to ground that work as a leader. And then finally, I guess my last leadership role is looking at these dyadic relationships and understanding that it's all based on mutuality. We want to ensure that we foster an environment where multiple voices and contributions aren't just heard, but they're integral to the process. It's not just the side, it's the entree. So these dyadic approaches ensure that we leverage the best of what all of us have to offer as a team. I want to ensure that we embrace shared leadership, like you said, Belinda, in a central way that we can all operate. So again, everyone has the shared responsibility and ownership of this decision-making process. So overall, for me, leadership is about no, I guess it's not that. Leadership is about inspiring and changing people around us by listening to what others have to say. So that's my little spiel. We'll send you back to your sessions and hope you have a great time.